The 18th century was full of development for Europe. During this time, the European countries engaged in several wars, underwent the Enlightenment, entered the Industrial and Agricultural Revolutions, witnessed the French revolting against their own monarchy, and so much more. In this video, we will be covering other aspects of the lives of the people, including hospitals, medical experiments, leisure and recreation, and diet and nutrition. We'll start off with background information on medical practices before the 18th century. During the medieval times, people believed in 4 bodily fluids that affected personality and health. These are known as the 4 humors, which consist of phlegm, blood, yellow bile, and black bile. Phlegm is associated with winter, and an excess of phlegm was believed to make people lazy and unemotional. An excess of blood was believed to make people lustful, irresponsible, and gluttonous. Too much yellow bile was believed to make people violent and easily angered, while too much black bile was believed to make people depressed and melancholic. In efforts to balance out the 4 humors, doctors and physicians often bled their patients to drain them of certain fluids by cutting a slit in the skin. Leeches and maggots were also commonly used to siphon out blood. Surprisingly, leeches are now gaining in popularity in the modern medical world. Not only are they efficient at draining excess blood, but the proteins and enzymes in the saliva help numb pain, reduce inflammation, and keep the blood flowing. This makes them a popular candidate to help with extensive surgery. There is also the ancient system of medical astrology. Different body parts were associated with different zodiac signs. Medicine also relied heavily on herbs, which are believed not to only heal, but also ward off evil spirits that cause sickness. Music was also believed to have therapeutic qualities. Cheerful music was recommended for the depressed, and paralyzed patients were given fast and loud music. A long time ago, people actually believed that death had healing powers. Some people dug up Egyptian tombs and other graveyards, and some people actually killed other people to obtain body parts to use for medicine. At Charles I of England's public execution in 1649, it is believed that people collected his blood, believing it would cure them of disease. His son Charles II was believed to make an alcoholic drink, now known as the King's Drops, which was made of distilled skulls. Skulls were believed to help with bleeding and dizziness. Cannibalism extended into the 18th century too. In 1747, the physician Robert James wrote in his book Pharmacopoeia Universalis that mummies helped with coughs, wounds, and much more.
The menu at this restaurant has everything you'd ever want, but nothing that quite fancies me. I do not want the steak béarnaise, I do not want the duck flambé. These specials don't sound special to me. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy. God is great, God is good. Let us thank him for this Randy. Amen. Randy is a 3-course meal plus dessert to seal the deal. Oh, and I'll be needing a to-go box. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy. I'd rather eat Randy. Randy, Randy.
Hospitals in the 18th century were a very unpleasant place to be. There was almost no ventilation because fresh air was considered bad for the health. Hospitals were very cramped, and several patients were squeezed into a single bed, which made people more sick because they were contracting new diseases from their bed partners. So many people died from infections in the hospitals that Parisians killed paupers by sending them to hospitals. Many hospitals had close connections with the church and offered more spiritual support rather than actually curing patients. However, hospitals did do procedures like amputations, which were performed in the bed or the floor.
No!
You had gangrene.
But you cut my arm off!
It's okay. It's just a flesh wound.
In mental hospitals, patients weren't even treated like humans. It was believed that mental illness was caused by the moon, hence the word lunatic. The average patient was treated by bleeding and cold water. Jean-Baptiste von Helmont advocated using cold baths to slow down the blood flow. Sometimes patients were almost drowned. According to von Helmont, the near-death experience would get rid of their madness. It wasn't until the end of the 18th century when hospital conditions improved. In the 1790s, an English Quaker named William Tuke founded the first humane sanatorium, and French physician Philippe Pinel unchained the mentally ill. Medicine also advanced during the 18th century and became more practical, secular, and experimental due to the influences of the Enlightenment. During this time, the celestial bed was invented, which was supposed to cure all diseases because it had magnets and electrical devices. The 18th century also experienced the developing of the blood transfusion process. Although French physician Jean-Baptiste Denis is credited for the first blood transfusion in 1667, which was between a lamb and a human, it wasn't until 1818 when British obstetrician James Bundle successfully transfused blood between two humans. However, the 18th century is best known for the development of the smallpox inoculation by English physician Edward Jenner. He noticed how dairy maids who had cowpox did not contract smallpox. So, Jenner experimented on his gardener's son, and the vaccination was a success. Lady Mary Wortley Montagu was a huge advocate of the smallpox inoculation because she once suffered from smallpox. However, it was not popular because 1 in every 50 people died from the vaccine, and people who were treated with the vaccine were considered infectious.
During winter months, families gathered around the fireplace and talked, sang, did craft work, and told stories. In some parts of Europe, women would gather together to chat, spin, and sew. Often young suitors would be invited in order to court the woman in a supervised environment. During the 18th century, there was an increase in commercial activities. Urban fairs, which attracted all social classes, featured acrobatics, freak shows, open-air performances, and optical illusions. Blood sports grew in popularity among the masses. Blood sports usually consisted of the competition between animals in which one died. Bull baiting and cockfighting were both prominent activities which were performed for the amusement of the spectators. One of the largest festivals of the year was Carnival, usually celebrated during February. Carnival was celebrated before Lent, which is the 40 days of fasting and penance before Easter. During Carnival, people celebrated with drinking, eating, and dancing, and a combination of plays, processions, and spectacles took place. Fools turned into gentlemen, peasants became royalty, and the rich were humbled. During Carnival, all social classes were equal. In the 18th century, criticism among the educated elites began to grow. Previously, elites shared enthusiasm for popular leisure time activities, and now tended only to see superstition, sin, disorder, and vulgarity.
Grain was a huge staple of the peasant's diet, especially bread. In the Beauvais region of France, the average peasant ate around 2 pounds of bread a day. Soup, gruel, and oatmeal were also very commonly eaten. Often the poor would only cook their oatmeal halfway, so when the oats expanded in their stomachs they would feel fuller. Vegetables were also very common, especially cabbages, carrots, and other leafy greens. Meat and eggs were rarely eaten, especially since in most of Europe there were hunting laws that restricted peasants from hunting.
Yay! Check tonight. Halt! Absolutely no hunting.
The upper classes ate a dramatically different diet. Their meals consisted of so much meat that they were practically carnivores. The wealthy also ate an abundance of sweets, cheeses, and nuts. Vegetables and fruits were rarely eaten. Many nobles had lavish meals with 3 meat courses and 3 fish courses. While they ate, they drank enormous amounts of alcohol. However, because these extravagant meals took hours to finish, they could drink bottle after bottle without getting drunk.